Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons and how you as a Dungeon Master should handle a world-class player if you are fortunate enough to have one. So right out of the gate, I just want to, explain that this video, for some people, this is going to be completely academic. It's actually quite, there's a good chance that at least 9 out of 10 of you, if not 95 out of 100 of you out there, do not have a world-class player sitting at your table, okay? So one, I just wanted to call out, I really absolutely love tabletop role-playing games, and one of the reasons why I would cover a topic like this is I really don't think, we don't really talk enough in TRPG commentary about players, and about managing players, and about what players mean at the table. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be talking about this today because I think it's an important topic, and also I have witnessed someone managing a world-class player recently, and there's some takeaways. All right, okay. Now, who is a world-class player that I have seen witnessed managed recently? Well, that is a world-class player as in a music player, someone who plays music. All right, so my wife is a member of our church's worship team. She plays piano, which is pretty unusual for our family, in that when we started going to this church about 3-4 years ago, she did not play piano. She was a guitar player, and she just kind of fiddled around with piano. And our church, it's not large. It's like 300 or 400 people, and so they needed somebody who played piano. And my wife, even just futzing around, she could learn 1 or 2 songs each week and play 1 or 2 songs each week. And now 3-4 years later, she's a fully capable piano player. If you're not aware of this, you can play piano using guitar chord sheet music. I was not aware of this. It's pretty incredible. My wife learned to play piano, okay? Now, my wife is not a world-class musician. She's a very skilled vocalist. She's a very skilled guitarist, and she's a very skilled piano player now. But she's good at all of those. And you can even say she's great at some of them, but she's not world-class, okay? All right, now, in the worship team at our church, there is a world-class player. I'm going to call him Benjamin. That's not his real name, but I don't want to call him out. But this is kind of interesting, so I'm going to go forward and respect his privacy. So Benjamin, not his real name, he is a world-class player. All right, so he's an older gentleman. He's getting close to the age of retirement, but for 30 years, he has made his living, and I actually think it might even be a little longer than that. He has made his living as a professional musician, all right? He specifically plays saxophone and clarinet, okay? He also plays the French horn, and he plays the trumpet, all right? And every week, he comes to our church, and he brings all his gear, right? When he goes onto the stage up there, there's $10,000 worth of equipment on that stage, just his, right? It's pretty incredible, right? So, and the thing is, that shows you the level of dedication and what you're talking about with this specific person, and how they've approached, and the tools they use to accomplish what they accomplish, right? This person has played with, so Motown was really big, I think back in the 60s and 70s, maybe even as early as 50s. He played with some of the Motown players after they were past their prime time, right? And they would do tours, like 10 or 15 years after their peak. He would go on tour and play with them, and he played quite a bit with them. He's played, and when musicians would come into the Philadelphia area, he would play with them there. And actually, I think he would play with, professional artists who would come and play at the Fillmore and even at Radio City Music Hall. He'd go up, and I think he would go as far down as Washington, D.C., all the way up as far as Boston on the regular every weekend, and he would play with world-class musicians. All right. Now, Benjamin can play at a level that nobody else in the worship team can play. He has more talent, music-wise, literally, than every other person on the worship team combined, including the band leader, right? Including the person who leads the worship team, without a doubt, maybe even double, right? He is just a world-class player. And also, when they come in, he practices with everybody else just like normal, right? But the reality is, when he's playing, everything he plays is darn near flawless, and that's the first time he plays it, right? He's just playing, and here's the thing: he's playing at a different level than everybody on that stage, right? Now, there's a few out there who may have a world-class player at your table, right? Now, I want to talk about what is a world-class player in Dungeons & Dragons, right? Because there are absolutely no professional players. We've just reached the point where there's a handful, I would say less than 10 professional Dungeon Masters, right? But professional player is not even a thing. But what does it take to be a professional player? Well, professional players, to be a world-class player, okay? So in Dungeons & Dragons, a world-class player, in my opinion, understands the rules fully, right? They don't have them memorized, but they have read every single core rule book. They've read the DMG, they've read the PHB, and they've read the Monster Manual, okay? And so they understand exactly what the Dungeon Master is trying to accomplish as far as implementing the rules, and they can assist the Dungeon Master, right? And that's another thing. A world-class player assists the Dungeon Master. They don't try to take over any of that Dungeon Master's power. They're there to make the story better and amplify what the Dungeon Master is doing. So that's another thing that a world-class player is they are a team player and they are not selfish. You can really see this with Benjamin, right? He enhances everybody that's up there. He doesn't outshine them, right? Not on purpose. Sometimes he does it accidentally, but he is there to enhance the overall experience for everybody in that in the group, right? And he's very unselfish, right? Like, he literally will help break down the equipment at the end of the day, not just his equipment, things like that, right? So I think a world-class player is knowledgeable of the rules, not selfish. They're looking out for every other player, right? And I'll tell you right there, that's not a small thing. There's a lot of, we have so many players, and not all of them even read the 3 core rule books. And then the other thing is the idea of not being selfish, right? Really thinking, how am I going to play my character well, and how am I going to think about amplifying not only the Dungeon Master, but amplifying the experience and the encounter, the experience at this table for everyone at the table, right? And calling out in a respectful, kind way to other players, saying, hey, you might want to try this option, or let's try this combination of moves together, that kind of thing. That's world-class playing, right? The other thing is, without a doubt, world-class players, all of them, right, are charismatic and intelligent and creative, right? That's a really big thing. And again, these are like finding all 3 of those things in one person, very, very rare, right? So here you have an intelligent, creative, charismatic person who's kind and is looking beyond their own character and is knowledgeable of the rules. These are truly purple unicorns, incredibly rare, but you may have one at your table. If you have one at your table, what do you do with them, okay? So the first thing you need to do with them is you need to not be scared by them, right? Not be threatened by them. And it's a very easy thing to do, because guess what? Every single attribute that allows you to be a great player allows you to be a great Dungeon Master, right? So it's easy to be threatened by these people, right? So you want to recognize, you need to recognize if you have a world-class player at your table. You may not, right? You might be so hyper-focused on your story and not paying attention to your players that you might not recognize. So recognize if you have a world-class class player at your table. They'll have the attributes that I just described, okay? Second, don't be threatened by them, right? So don't be threatened by them. And this is important, right? You want to understand why someone who's capable of dungeon mastering would not actually dungeon master, right? Well, one of the things is some people are absolutely allergic to leadership. And if you don't think, and I'll tell you right now, dungeon mastering is leadership. If you are a dungeon master, you are fully capable of leadership, okay? And some people are absolutely allergic to leadership, right? They don't like leadership. And there's a lot to not like about leadership. You have to make decisions. You have to do things that people don't like. You have to shoulder responsibility. You have to own when things fail, right? These are all heavy subjects for people, and some people don't like it, right? So that's a very good reason why someone would not be a dungeon master, right? Another one is they may not have time to be a dungeon master, right? It absolutely takes way more time to be a dungeon master than it does to be a player. So they may have a time commitment issue, right? The other thing is you may have a dungeon master who's playing in your game, right? And again, that would be easily to be threatened if one of your world-class players is actually a dungeon master, right? Which in other campaigns, and they're just moonlighting in your game as a player, right? So don't be threatened by them, right? Do not be threatened by them, right? So and also, just so you're aware, if you're a DM, you have to have confidence. You absolutely have to have confidence, right? It's like a cloak that you put on. You just have to have it. Now, some people have it naturally. Some people have to, put it on like a cloak and wear it. Like pull it out of the ether and wear it. And just own it, right? It's just one of the things that has to be done. All right. So what else? Now, here's the next one. Okay, you're going to need to communicate with your world-class player in one of two ways. Okay. You have to decide if you're going to communicate with them directly or indirectly about them being a world-class player at your table. If you have the kind of relationship where you can just talk to the person, then what you can do is you can just invite them out for coffee separate to the game and say, listen, you're a world-class player. You're playing at a different level than anybody at the table, right? And I would like for you and I to acknowledge your level of skill, right? And then let's commiserate together to make the game better, right? So, and then you could say, oh, okay, so world-class player, Sally keeps doing the Leroy Jenkins, right? Can you help me with this in that the next time they do it, you call them out? I've already warned them once at the table. So just hearing the same message from a different person would be really helpful. The other thing is, can you please, we have somebody who's cheating with their dice, right? Not asking, rolling their dice and saying, I'm doing this, and then rolling their dice immediately, rather than waiting for me as a dungeon master to declare when they're going to roll their dice, right? Or they're always setting their dice on 20, they're picking it up and it's not a full roll, right? Can you just talk to them, in a kind way and say, oh, I'm not sure you got a really good roll there. You want to retry that? That kind of thing, right? So you can actually get them on board with helping you with tasks that you need help with, right? Even smaller things like, hey, I think that Harold, he doesn't really like to speak up and he just wants to swing his sword, but next week I'm going to highlight him and I want you to be ready to encourage Harold to talk more and to actually role play more. It might fail, but let's try it together. Let's pull that rope together, right? So, talk to the world-class player if you can. You may not be able to do that, right? And there's reasons for that, right? Not everybody's super, kumbaya hugs, right? Some people just run their game and they don't have the ability to ask somebody directly for help, right? So if that's the case, you want to have them indirectly help. So one of the things you want to do is you want to call out when your world-class player is doing things that you want your other players to do as well. And the way I would handle that is give additional XP reward. Say, oh, hey, in that last scene, you had the option to do another multiple attack, and you got to take it out more enemies, but instead you spent your entire turn going over and just doing a setup so this other person could get a takedown as well, because you had already dropped 8 opponents, and nobody else had even dropped 2, right? Nobody even was working on their second drop. So that was a really great way to highlight somebody else's play and take yourself out of the shine for a little bit. Here's 250 XP additional, right? So use XP to call that out. And also, just acknowledge it with speech. You don't even have to give XP if you don't want to. You could say, great job, thank you, world-class player, and then move forward. So be thankful, recognize it, highlight it for your players, right? So these are all things that you can do to really use world-class players if they're at your table to the maximum, right? And also, if you do, and then again, I was going to say, but this is one other thing. If you do have a world-class player, here's what I would do, all right? You generally have 3 levels of players at tables, in my opinion, okay? You have, really, I would say drudge, veteran, elite, right? Drudges they're just like, they're there. That's about it. That's all you can say. They're sitting at the table and they're playing, right? Veteran players are skilled. They're good at what they do. And you're appreciative to have them at the table, okay? And then elites not all elites are world class, but elite players are extremely good. They're valuable. They're awesome to have at the table, right? Here's the thing. When you have a world class player, right, make sure that you're doing everything you can to make the game exciting for them, right? But treat them with equal respect and equal value as a veteran player, okay? However, be ready, willing, and able to get rid of a drudge if it's going to cost you an elite player, right? So that's one thing I am starting to call out. Not all players are created equal. And while you can have a world-class player, you can have a really terrible player. And if you have a really terrible player, that is not going to last long with a world-class player, right? So you should do what you can to control the behavior of a drudge player, right? And if you need to, remove them from the game. And the reason why is if you're fortunate to have a world-class player, don't let a really, really bad player continue to play for more than 3 sessions without any improvement in play, right? Make sure to preserve a game that has a world-class player in it because you're very fortunate to have that situation. That's my take. I would love to hear what everybody has to say on managing a world-class player, and please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.